like there wasn't going to be any one man who could replace Johnny Carson.
Right.
And so there have been several and many women. And that's really fun. I think it's healthy.
I think that's amazing as well, too. Of course, going through our website as well, too, you had a lot of celebrity interviews. Who would you say was the most interesting that you have had, probably the most fun with, and probably the most challenging?
Oh, you mean back when I was with Premier and Rick Dees?
Correct, yes.
So, yeah, I put I found a lot of cassettes from interviews that I had done in the 80s and 90s, and then I kind of like loaded them up onto SoundCloud and put them on my website just because they're fun and they're interesting pieces of history. So what was your question again? Like, what was the most
interesting interview that you've had, and what was the most challenging?
I don't think I loaded up any of the ones that were challenging because like at the time those felt like failures. So, but like what's interesting is like anytime that I ran into a celebrity where I didn't have a good experience, when I interviewed them again, I had a great experience. And I think that just proves that sometimes people are just they're not having a great day, and it's not my fault. And like none of us can take things personally or should take things personally if we don't have a really solid encounter with somebody, because it could be about the day that they're having and nothing about you. So I had kind of an uncomfortable interview with Dionne Warwick. It was early in the morning, because Ricky's, he would do a show early in the morning. She may be a night owl. She's a singer after all. And I just remember she was kind of cranky. And then maybe a year later, I went over to her house and she could not have been any lovelier. So, and then I had a similar experience with Roddy McDowall. And those are like interesting show business legends where it's like, oh, I don't want to have a memory of a bad experience with Roddy McDowall. But the next time I interviewed him, he was lovely. And so that taught me just something about human nature and not to take myself so seriously or get down on myself if things don't go, perfectly smoothly.
It sounds like you're having a lot of fun, too. I'll talk more about some of the documentaries you've done. I love to hear more about them. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start a business or own a business for a while, who are you going to call for sole proprietorship insurance? Why not call the expert, Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group? He also specializes in Medicare and long-term care insurance. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Licensed in 7 states, in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can also check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also listen and download on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also watch the interview on YouTube as well. We're here with the co-founder of Premier Network. She also the host of social network Our Place, also a podcaster called Things I Found Online, and director of quite a couple of documentaries, and one of them is very interesting. It's about the Cowsills, which aired on Showtime back in 2013 and 14. And, of course, I happen to enjoy the Cowsills, and I'd love to hear you tell us all about it and what's it like working with the Cowsills.
Sure. I grew up as a fan, and I was living out here in L.A., and as soon as you could Google things, I guess I Googled the Cowsills. We all kind of maybe, you could look at what was your first Google. It was something you were probably passionate about as a child. Mm-hmm. So I Googled the Cowsills, and, fans were, use the internet immediately to find each other, fans of everything, but whether it's like some sort of motorcycle or some type of gardening or, type of cooking or whatever, they find themselves instantly once they could start Googling and connecting. And so the Cowsill fans had long since had found each other, and there was a woman named Vicky Sedgwick had put together a fan site, or just a website for the Cowsills called cowsill.com, and I signed their guest book, or I said, thank you for helping me grow up. And I immediately heard from a woman who lives in Southern California named Karen, and she said, oh, you live in Southern California, you should come out to this pub where Bob plays, at Bob Cowsill. And I was like, I don't think I need to be doing that, because I just pictured, I don't know, because they were so, the Cowsills were so perfect. They were just, their talent and their voices and their harmonies at such young ages was so exquisite that there was no reason for them to not still be successful in my mind, other than something horrible had happened, that I didn't need to see. And so I kind of said, oh, sure, I'll do that. And then I put it off 3 weeks, because things that you don't want to do, like doctor's appointments, 3 weeks is like, okay, yeah, in 3 weeks I'll do that, because it feels like enough padding to where you don't have to think about it right now. But like the 3 weeks goes by, kids, and yeah, it was the date I was supposed to meet Karen at this pub. So I go out there and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to see, but it's going to like destroy my childhood memory of the Cowsills. And I go into this pub and Karen finds me, and all of a sudden the pub starts filling up with all these people, and you could see that adult Cowsills were pouring in. And it turns out that it was the night that John Cowsill, the youngest Cowsill brother, was marrying Vicki Peterson from the Bangles.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and so the wedding party had kind of like migrated into this pub, which is where Cowsills like to hang out, because they could just make music all night long, which is what they've always done all their lives. And you kind of saw, like, I just kind of sat there and watched, and I saw Paul Cowsill, and he was sitting across the table from a young man, and somebody told me that's his son. That's his son, Brendan. And I watched the way they were interacting, and I thought, nobody with such a good relationship with his son has had a bad life. Like, everything's okay. And I just took a deep breath, and I enjoyed the evening. And it was like the same harmonies, the same gorgeous, brilliant musicality. It was just underneath a dartboard. So the question was, why? What happened? So there's a story here. And at that time I was in radio, I was with Premier Radio. I wasn't a filmmaker, but I kind of spent the next 8 years figuring out how to make a movie and making a movie. And that's kind of like what taught me how to be a filmmaker, how to edit. It was around that time period that you could get your own editing software on your computer. You could make a film. You could make your own film. You could film something, and you didn't need to rent an edit studio, or you didn't need to have like a ton of equipment. Like, you could film things and you could store it on a memory card and stick it in your computer and transfer all the files. And I mean, I think we were still using mini DVs at that time, but the point is you could do it. You didn't have to get a budget from Paramount Pictures to make a movie. You could make a movie. I mean, it was irresponsible of me to set out on that path when I was going to be hit with expenses like the rights to all this music, the rights to all of the TV appearances they had made, all of that was coming at me. But I kind of just figured out how to cross every hurdle. When I reached the hurdle, it was like, all right, what do I need to do to get past this? And by the time I finished the movie, a lot of tragic and dramatic things had happened to the Cowsills, and so all of that is in the film, and it turned out to be a really fascinating experience to get to know your childhood idols in that way, and you get to know them as humans and love them differently. So it's been quite a fascinating learning experience.
It sounds amazing as well, too, just like many shows that we have on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube as well, too, that many of the hosts are not starstruck, but also shows that, people like in the Cowsills or the Bengals or even the Fab Four or the Stones, you talk to people and they're just human like everybody else. And if I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong as well, too. They have a job to do. They put on a certain costume, outfit they're required to do. They go perform their job, and then when they're done, they take off their status, come home, and basically just come home to families or go out with friends or come home, hug their pets, or just sit in an easy chair, have something to eat and drink, and then everybody just rests up, go to bed, and then do the same thing the next day. That's what it's pretty much all about when it comes to podcasts and today's media.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much sums it right there, too. Of course, you also have another documentary called We Played Marbles, Remembering a Stolen Childhood, about the lives of Holocaust survivors. That was one of your first projects, 2007, and you can tell us about that.
Well, this kind of happened while I was making the Cowsills, because the Cowsills took like 8 years, so I had an opportunity to interview 12 Holocaust survivors in the Santa Barbara area and capture their memories. And we made a film called We Played Marbles. And the first question I had asked everybody was, tell me your first memory, and then tell me about your childhood, and then tell me when you knew that everything was about to change. And so one of the women, Helga, she was describing her childhood, and she said, we played marbles, I had a scooter. And, they really were just like anybody else. And then all hell broke loose. And one of the women that I met 12 years ago when I was making that documentary is an artist named Margaret Singer. And I have just recently completed a documentary short that focuses on her. And it's called Margaret Singer Seeking Light. She's 97 years old. Her art is magnificent. And the film is just bursting with her art. And she's the kind of woman who everything she says could be embroidered into a pillow. She's just a truly wise and joyful, grateful person. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted everyone to kind of have the experience of spending 20 minutes with her. So that's my most recent film.
That is amazing, too. Or what are some of the upcoming film projects that you have as well, too, or any other projects involved or associated?
Right now, I'm going to just focus on getting Seeking Light, Margaret Singer, into film festivals.
Okay.
And I'm focusing on doing a podcast every week that's interesting and entertaining, and teaching my class. And I write a weekly column for the Santa Barbara News Hawk, and I take our place that you were mentioning is now called Ask Weezy. Mm-hmm. The app is called Ask Weezy, and kids can write me questions, and so I'm kind of an advice columnist. And from that app, I take 3 questions every week and put them in the column, and the column is called Ask Weezy. So that way it has all the same branding across the board in terms of giving young people advice. That's what I'm focusing right now. I'd love to make another film, and it's usually like with filmmaking, because they don't make you any money, that you get to spend money making a movie, and so it's kind of like not exactly the employment program that I would recommend for anybody that needs to buy food. Right. But if you do have a little bit of extra money and you want to put Final Cut on your computer, and with an iPhone, you can make movies. And I think a lot of YouTubers are proving that. And so, like what you were talking about earlier, is like, people get up, put on their clothes, go do their thing. And you could be walking past people every day that have a show or have a blog or have a column, and you wouldn't even know what they're up to, because technology allows us all to kind of exercise all of that creativity that so many of us have inside. Even if it's just sharing your photos on Instagram or Facebook, it just makes you feel like, okay, I contributed something to the chorus today. my voice is in the choir.
That it sounds like something that people can contribute as well too. And of course, before we get to somebody of your influence as well too, you're also a songwriter.